In this video, I'm going to show you how to use SPSS to run an ANOVA. And today, this assignment has two parts. The first part is the between subjects design, and the second part is the within subjects design. So let's start with the between subjects design. So here's the premise. It says a random sample of people were asked whether or not they were athletic, moderately athletic, or athletic, or for the first one is not athletic, okay? And then their reaction speed was measured and recorded. And so what they did is they dropped a vertical meter stick and then the subject had to catch it. And then they measured how long it took for the subject to catch it. And the researchers were wondering if there's a difference in the mean time reaction time of the three groups. So is there a difference between the mean reaction times of non-athletic people, medium athletic people, and athletic people? Okay, so the data are supplied here, so you can click here to download the data. But let's look at this note. It says the reason I'm supplying both an image and CSV file for the data is because recall that SPSS does not like tables. So even if you were to upload the CSV files into SPSS, you would still have to go through this various tedious procedure that we're about to do together. So don't bother to upload the CSV file into into SPSS, because you wouldn't be able to use it as is. We're going to have to go through this procedure, and we're going to do it just carefully reading the directions and doing exactly what it said. So what I did, just to make it easier for myself to make this video, is I took a picture of the instructions on my phone, so I don't have to keep toggling back and forth between the screens. But when you're doing it, just, feel free to either do that yourself or toggle back and forth between the screens. So this isn't something you need to memorize. We're going to read the direction and then we're going to do it. All right, so let me open up SPSS and we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay, so if we're looking at our instructions, the first instruction says, click on variable view and enter groups in the name column. So we're going to come to variable group view, and in the name column, we're going to put in groups. Change the decimals to 0. So under decimals, I'm going to change that to 0. That's step number 1. It says click on the values box for groups. In other words, click on the small 3 dots to bring the dialog box where you can code your groups. And this is exactly what we did in the last lab that we did together. So we come to this values group, and there's 3 dots that we click on it and brings us up, and we're going to add the values. So our first group is the non-athletic group. Our second group is the medium athletic group. And the third group is our athletic group. So just like we did last time, we have to tell SPSS what our groups are. All right? Okay, now we're on step number 3. In variable view, so we're in variable view, enter length in the name column. So we're going to enter length in the name column. Change the decimals to 1, because if you looked at your data, the decimal, the times are rounded off to 1 decimal point. Okay. Now we're on step number 4. Click on data view. In the groups column, enter 1 in the first 7 cells, 2 in the next 8 cells, and 3 in the next 8 cells. Because just like we did in our last lab assignment, we're going to be putting the table into SPSS. So in group 1, there are 7 entries. In group 2, there are 8 entries. And in group 3, there are also 8 entries. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're actually going to enter in the values. So this is why I took a picture of the data. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that picture to enter in my scores. So in group 1, the non-athletic group, one value is 16, the next is 25.3, etc. So I'm just entering the data into, from the table into this column. So I'm going to be quiet while I do that, because it's hard for me to talk and enter data at the same time. So you go ahead and do your data. I'm just doing my data. So these are the values for the first group. Now I'm going to go on to the second group, medium. Okay, so these should be the data values for the medium athletic group. And now I'm going to do the athletic group. Okay. So on a piece of scratch paper, remember the first step is always write your null and alternative hypothesis. So your null hypothesis is that the means are all the same. There's no difference in the reaction time between the groups. And your alternative hypothesis is at least one of the means is different. In other words, at least one of the groups has a reaction time that's different than the other two. So in order to figure out if that's true or not, what we're going to do is we're going to run an ANOVA. All right. So now we're on the next part. Our data is all in here, and we're on step number 5. Step number 5 says go to the menu bar, the top of the screen, and click Analyze. And after we do that, we're going to go Compare Means. Now you'll notice that the first half of this menu is all the different comparison of means you can do. And we've already covered 3 of these, but now today what we're doing is a one-way ANOVA. All right. So it says one-way ANOVA to display the dialog box. Use the arrows to put length in the dependent variable list, and the factor that we're using to compare them is the groups. So what this says is we're wondering if length depends on the type of athletic ability that you have, and that's how the subjects have been grouped. Okay. It says click post hoc, because we want to do a post hoc test if appropriate. So we're going to click on post hoc. Now remember we talked about how there's many, many, many different types of post hoc tests. The most common one is Tukey. All right, but there are others that are sometimes used, but we're going to use Tukey, and we're going to click OK or continue. All right, and now we'll click OK. So here, again, lots of information. What are we looking for? We're looking for an F test statistic and a p-value. So in this first one, here we have our F test statistic and we have our p-value. So I'll let you finish the rest of that yourself. So based on this p-value, which is 0.608, you're going to decide if you should reject or fail to reject your null hypothesis and then write a conclusion. Now, in the assignment, it says to do post hoc analysis if appropriate. Because remember, what does the post hoc analysis do? If you know there's a difference in your groups, if you know that one of the means is not like the other, then you're curious, hey, which one is not like the other? So that's why you would look at a post hoc analysis. If there is no difference between the means, then even though SPSS will print out a post hoc analysis, you're not going to bother to look at it because there is no difference in the means. And so I'm going to let you then think about, based on this p-value, which is called significance here, but based on this p-value, what should you do? Should you reject your null hypothesis or should you not? Okay, so I'll leave that part to you. Now, there's a second kind of ANOVA that we talked about, and that was the within subjects ANOVA, with the within subjects design. And one of the things we talked about was that this design is less used, less popular, less frequently seen than the other. All right, so let me just give you the setup. It says iconic memory is a type of memory that holds visual information for about half a second. So what they did is they showed subjects 3 rows of 4 letters for a very short amount of time. And then the subjects were asked to recall how many letters they remembered. And they did this in intervals of waiting no seconds, half a second, or 1 second before responding. Okay, that's what the directions for the subjects were given. Okay, and the researchers hypothesized that longer delays would cause poorer recall. It says the data table are found here. So if you look at this the data. It's in a CSV file. It's short amount of time, medium amount of time, longer amount of time. Okay, so let's take a look at the steps to do a within subjects ANOVA. So it says upload the data into SPSS. Finally, a case where SPSS will work with a table. So that was very exciting. So I'm going to come here to SPSS, open up a new data file. I'm going to upload my data. And this is the lab data from today. All right, so if we take a look at our data, here's our table in SPSS. Now let's look at the instructions. The instructions say, in the menu bar, go to Analyze, General Model, Linear Model, Repeated Measures. So I'm going to come here to Analyze, General Linear Model. And do you see I've run into a slight problem? It says in the directions, choose repeated measures because this is a repeated measures problem. And I don't have that option here. I just have something that's called univariate. So one thing I learned is that SPSS, there's different versions of SPSS. So each semester, the university doesn't provide SPSS for me, so I have to, purchase a license for it. And I've always just purchased the basic license. There's several levels. There's like SPSS Pro or, regular SPSS. So I've just been doing a regular SPSS because it's less expensive. And I don't use this in my personal practice. I use other software instead. So what I learned is that SPSS has now put this within subjects ANOVA into the professional SPSS level, not in the quote regular SPSS. So I no longer have access to doing a within subjects ANOVA in the SPSS model that I have or on my computer. Otherwise, I would show you. It would just come here. There'd be a choice for within subjects. You'd click it. Voila. You could just follow these directions and do the ANOVA. I don't know what the library has. All right. I don't know if the library has basic SPSS or professional SPSS that also has that on it. It used to, like I say, it used to be on the regular model and now it's no longer there. It was last year and now it's not there anymore. So take a look at this little note here. All right. So this portion of the lab is optional. If the library computers have this option on it, like if they are able to do within subjects ANOVAs, and you would know it's able to do it because when you clicked on these instructions, they'd be easy to follow. And if you would like to do it, then you can get 2 bonus points in your lab. Oh, no obligation. And if the library computers don't have it, just like my computer doesn't have it, don't worry about it. It's just another way of reinforcing the message that within subjects ANOVAs are very unusual. Most researchers would not design a study that tested people under 3 conditions. They would use different subjects for each condition, which is the between subjects ANOVA that we've talked about already. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. So yes, everyone needs to do the first one because SPSS should be able to do that and just follow the directions, all right? And then the second one is optional. If the library computers are able to do it, great. And if not, don't worry about it. But if you want to do it, just follow the directions and they'll work out great. All right, that's it for the lab today.